you got to understand at age 12 I started selling drugs, and my
Hmm.
job selling drugs was, if I didn't have customers, to go find people and approach people out of the blue and try to sell them drugs, dude, which was
Yeah.
against the law, right?
So
And I'm
you
in
were
Utah.
selling. You've been selling for a while
So
before you
so
sold
yeah,
alarms.
I remember after a couple doors my first day, one of the powerful thoughts that I had to myself that I reinforced throughout my door knocking career is like, number one, I don't care what these people think about me. I don't care at all. They are not paying my bills. They're not my friends. They're not doing
Yeah.
anything for me. So when I knock on your door, if you're mean to me or you're nice to me, I don't care either way. Like, we're not going to hang out later on. We're not, I have friends. I've had the same friends my whole life. Like, I'm good.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Q Method Show. I am super excited. We got an awesome guest. But before we get in, we're going to get into all things fitness and sales and even some mindset. My guest with me today, his name is Seth. I'm going to butcher his last name, but I believe is it Grenny?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, decent.
Nice work.
Probably butchered it, but we go way back in the solar industry, so we'll be diving into that. But I want to talk about him and being a father, just some of the things that I've learned from him. And there's going to be a lot of gold nuggets in terms of solar, in terms of sales, in terms of fitness. So you guys are going to want to tune in. But thanks for jumping on, Seth. How we doing?
Doing great, brother. I'm grateful to be here. It's nice to talk to you again, and excited to get into it.
Awesome, dude. Well, I guess you have, I think one of the cooler stories in that I've heard at least in the solar industry, just as a person. So give us kind of a background. Who is Seth? Like, what led you up in your life? Like, give us kind of a rundown. I don't know how far back we want to go, but I want to hear some of your story a little bit here because it's pretty cool from what I remember.
Sure. Yeah. How far back we go is up to you, homie. I'll let you kind of lead the way there. But
Okay.
initially started door to door in 2010, and started at a hard point in my life. In many ways, the hardest point in my life. I had lost everything. I had just spent 13 months in jail fighting five to lifes, for a major drug distribution, gang enhancement, all that stuff case. I beat the case after spending 13 months fully believing that I was going to prison for the next 25 years to life. So, that, like, that experience is a hard thing to explain because I, during that period of time, I didn't really think I'd ever be getting out. It was just the way things work in there. So I got out. The way that life looked when I started in door to door is I owned nothing. So I got out and went to a rehab that I got myself kicked out of. Then I went to a halfway house that I got myself kicked out of. And that's where I started door to door. So I had everything I owned in two black trash bags. I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have any food. I didn't have a car. I didn't have any money. I lived on EBT, and was like, to get into gyms, dude, was like bumming, like having to go with people that had a pass, or like go when a friend I knew was working there, so they let me in to work out like that. I was a bum, dude. I didn't want to go back to like pushing weight, which is where I'd had money for my whole life. And so found door to door, and that's what it looked like when I started. I was on probation. I had lost the use of my right leg from the knee down. I had the glute taken out of my right leg from a bunch of crazy things that had happened. I'd had a girl who I had gotten pregnant right before I was incarcerated, placed the child for adoption while I was incarcerated, or potentially maybe in the hospital, I think is when that actually went through. But that was my life at that point, dude. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't attractive. I'd made nothing but bad choices, and door to door for me was the other path. Was a
Yeah.
way to do something different.
So you kind of started at ground zero, if you to put it in a fair saying, would you
Yeah,
say?
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
own nothing. Yeah,
You were at ground zero. You had sounds like a lot of different issues going on, and I guess kind of tell me then like what changed or okay, so you got out, And I guess what was your mindset then? Then like how did you get into door to door and how did things start changing?
Between like 2007 or 8 and 2010, most of my best friends had caught major cases, so they were in prison for very long periods of time.
Hmm.
I'd had three really close friends die in three different unrelated, really crazy circumstances. So my mentality was just like, I know where this is headed. Like, and I've always known, it was
Yeah.
never a question to me where I was going to end up doing what I was doing. I just did it anyway. So my mentality was like, whatever it takes, was like, there's people that rely on me. There's people that look up to me. There's people that that have done so much for me over my life through all these hard times that I put myself through, and I owe it to them to figure this out. And so, it was, yeah, there was a kid that had grown up a couple neighborhoods away from me that was in door to door, not a kid, a man, I should say, but as we knew each other as kids, and I knew he was in door to door. So I hit him up, and, I kind of gave him like a little 60-second pitch of like, dude, I have all these felonies on my record. I know it's not going to look good. I don't know if you can even hire me, but like, I promise you, I moved more weight than anyone you know. I was really good at what I did on the street, and I
That's
know I
awesome.
can sell anything. I know I can. I know how to work. I was a really good wrestler.
Hmm.
Like, and so, just give me a shot. And he did. And they figured it out. And that's kind of where it started. It was like, I didn't care what anyone around me was doing. I didn't care what anyone around me like they wanted to make bad choices. It had no bearing on me anymore. I put my head down and was like, this is what I'm going to do. I have to do something different than what I've been doing, or I
Hmm.
will end up in prison for the rest of my life, or I will die. And I didn't want to do either of those things.
Yeah. Wow. So you kind of got to this place where you kind of said where you felt like people were looking up to you and you kind of felt like you were letting people down, it sounds like a little bit, and you finally felt like you got a shot and it was like, I'm gonna take it. And you put your head down and you got into it. Where did that lead us, man? Like what? So you got into door to door and then what happened?
Like the start of my career in door to door.
Yeah, yeah. What
Um,
what was that like? Like so you kind of transitioned and you got a shot, you got a chance kind of to take things back and where did that lead you?
so my first trip, I went down to Las Vegas with a group of guys who worked for the dude that I hit up.
Hmm.
And we were in a short-term rental home on the west side of Las Vegas, and those guys were at a very different stage of life than me. Like they were like, we're in Vegas, let's go to the strip, let's gamble, let's go to the strip club, doing whatever they're gonna do.
Yeah.
And I had no judgments about that. I didn't care, but that just zero appeal to me. And so I remember my first night there. I went to bed at 9 and was sharing a room with another kid, and he had another bed in the room, but wasn't there. And I just got in bed. Everyone was gone. Went to sleep. Woke up early the next morning, and I'd spent maybe a couple hours the day before watching the kid that was supposed to train me not get a deal.
Mm,
So I honestly, as I watched him, I would feel so uncomfortable as he'd approach these doors and say this weird stuff to these people. I just was mostly like, I'm not doing that. Like,
mm.
this is what I'm not going to do when I knock, and
That's
that's what
awesome.
I had. So I woke up at 5 the next morning. I did my thing. I went to the gym. I did my morning routine. I went to an AA meeting, got my head on straight, and I'm done with everything. And I think 7:30, 7:45, and everybody's passed out. They had gotten back at 4 in the morning and whatever. And I remember this was alarms, right? And so I
Yeah.
remember walking out the door of the living room. There's like four dudes passed out in the living room. And I knew I needed like paperwork because the dude had them. I've never seen him use one, but so I saw these stacks of paperwork, and there were three big long sheets that you fold out and a little folder. So I grabbed like a handful of those and I just walked out the door. And I walked out with no plan and no idea what I was about to do, but I was like, these guys told me I can get, it was either 350 or 450. I always say a number, and I am
Remember?
confident, but I knew I could get one of those per sale, right? And I knew the best way to do it was to convince people that my alarm was better than their alarm. I didn't know how my alarm worked, but I knew that if I could convince them to switch or someone that didn't have one to get it, that's what I got.
Hmm.
And so I was like, all right, dude, I mean, I have done way harder, way crazier things for most of my life than going and knocking on people, like
Yeah.
it wasn't that deep. Walked out the door. I'll always, the pivotal moments for me during that day. The first one was getting to the end of the sidewalk because had all been like machine doing what it wanted to do until then. And it hit me at that moment that I didn't know what I was doing. And I remember just thinking like, well, shit, I'm going to go left. That was the thought that I always remember that morning is like, all right, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to go left. And walking around, looking at houses, looking for signs that said they had an alarm. And then I would just go knock. And at first I would just ask questions and like ask them about how their alarm worked and what it did and what it couldn't do. Does it have a touch screen like this one? And, that's kind of how I started to learn about it. And it took me this was before 8 that morning. It took me about 4, maybe 5 hours before I finally got into someone's house and was able to like convince this lady to switch her company. Like she was down to switch. I have no idea why she did it to this day, but she was down to switch companies. And so I had to use her phone and I called my manager and he drove to the house and helped me do the paperwork. And I actually got a deal. It was
Yeah.
like, wow, this is crazy. And this was another pivotal moment for me, Quinn, was after that deal, right? Now, at this stage in my life, 450, let's call it 400 bucks, whatever it
Yeah.
was. Dude, it was so much money. Like I have committed heinous
Mm.
felonies for $100 1,000
Yeah.
times by now. And so
Yeah.
400 bucks like that coming next week, like, there was this like a mini thought of like, well, I could go kick it back at home, and like get to know these guys. And I just remember like, why would I do that? Dude, this is insane that I just made this much money in the last 4 hours. I didn't break the law. No, the government's not going to kick the door in and take my money from me. Like, this is my money, dude. This
Yeah.
is legit.
Yeah.
And so I remember what I decided to do instead was walk faster. Was like, and I have a limp. You've seen that. Like, but I just limped along, dude, and I started cruising and was like, let's find
Wow.
another deal. And so I kept going until after 8 o'clock that night, and I had five at the end of the day. That was my first day, and the rest just kind of, it just
Yeah.
kind of happened from there. Like
Yeah.
three the next day and four the next day, and
Yeah.
it worked
Wow.
out.
So you got a cell on your first day. Well, not even just one. You got six on your first
I got
day.
five.
Okay, five total. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Dang, dude. Yeah, I remember I didn't get a cell for an entire week. I bageled 6, 7 days, and then I finally got my first alarm cell, and I was like, oh, let's go. That first one definitely changes you for sure. You never forget it. Because
No,
I still don't forget mine either. It's like
no,
I was like, wow, it's doable. People are doing it.
it's
It's
real.
possible. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What
Okay.
market were you in for your first deal?
So I was with Vivint and we were just going all over. I was just doing blitzes essentially. It was the off season, I guess. I had just finished football and we were in California, Bakersfield. Yeah,
Oh
Bakersfield.
yeah. Okay, that's Vivian's backyard.
Yeah, and
That's home.
so yeah, so I was pumped. And we were just going all over. I think we went to somewhere in Lubbock, Texas for a blitz. Yeah, I was all over the place. But yeah, it was crazy. It was amazing though. Game changer when it first
Oh,
happened.
absolutely. Yeah, nothing like it.
Okay, so what happened from there? Because I met you in solar, so I want to fast forward. So you got in with alarms, but like
Hmm.
let's talk solar. Like what got you into solar? How did you get into that industry? And then obviously we can talk about how we met and whatnot, but how did that transition happen? What got you out of the alarm industry?
Um, it was actually a culmination of circumstances that, I mean, probably God, if I'm honest. Like, I don't know how else,
Okay.
but like, I'm a super loyal dude to people. I've always been that way because of my upbringing and how I grew up. And so the people I worked with at Vivint, those were my dudes, and nothing was going to change that. But circumstances changed in everybody's lives, and a lot of things happened my last year at Vivint it wasn't the place for me anymore. It just wasn't, you know. There's a lot going on. I had known solar was better for probably 2 years because I had had guys leave my team. You know, I was running teams and I
Yeah.
did really well for 8, 9 years in alarms there before solar became a thing for me. But I'd had a couple dudes go do solar, like dudes that, you know, I would spank on the doors every year, and they're making more than me. So I knew solar was better, but I was like, dude, I'm making so much money with my background. I'm learning so much. I didn't care. I was just loyal
Yeah.
up until everything, you know, there's just a lot of drama within my region for a couple years there that it just wasn't a place where I could stay. I knew solar was the move. I had no question. I knew I was going to make a lot more money. I didn't know exactly how it was going to play out. Like, you know, obviously, I had no idea about any of that, but I knew that was it. And so when I left Vivint, I kind of spent like 6 months, dude, like I met with 22 different solar companies because now I've been through the industry for a minute. And so I got to see, you know, I learned a lot of, I had some hard lessons about people taking advantage of me and bad
Mm,
expectations and stuff like that. So I was like, like irritatingly careful about where I ended up.
right.
And to this day, I'm so grateful for that. But I spent a ton of time meeting with different people, and I was just extremely drawn to Doug Robinson and Luke Toon. And so after 6 months of annoying the crap out of them with a million questions and like kind of like trying to manipulate them into lying, like figure out if I can trust these guys type of thing, I said let's do it and decided to go to solar. And for me, leadership, like I a month into alarms, they were like, you should run a team. And
Hmm.
so I put a team together. You know this because you know me, but like I've never been the dude that wants to be the center of attention, dude. I don't
Yeah.
like public speaking. I do it a lot and I've had to learn, but I don't enjoy it. I don't like
Hmm.
people looking at me. I don't like awards. Even stuff like this, like it's just not natural for me.
Yeah.
I'd rather just work. And so my
Hmm.
my mentality going into solar was like, if I'm going to build something and I'm going to lead people, like I have to be better than them. I have to be the alpha. That's the kind of man I respect is a dude that can grab his people by the throat and be like, get in line. And so I knew I had to sell, and I had to sell a lot, and I had to figure it out, and I had to be the best. And so I actually didn't really recruit. Like I had a little handful, maybe 5 to 10 people my first year and a half to 2 years on doors and solar. But what I really focused on doing was just producing accounts. And there was no real setter and closer. Your group kind of brought that to legacy. And so I like, you know, I just grinded. I worked the same shift that 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. thing that I started in 2010 had just become habitual. That was how I worked when I was on doors, unless there was a correlation or something like that. And so I just kept the same shift, dude, and I worked 6 days a week. I didn't take sick days because I started making asinine amounts of money. My first week,
Yeah.
I self-gen 7 deals, and I remember driving home at the end of that week. I don't, I'm really good with blinders on, dude. So I had no idea. I didn't even know how many I'd closed, and I
Yeah.
was like looking through my pipeline as I drove home, and was like, this is theoretically $86,000 that I made this week. Like if everything installed, which I knew it
Yeah.
wouldn't, but
Yeah.
I didn't understand like why these deals had to cancel either. You know, retention was a big
Hmm.
focus of mine. And so that like my best, you know, I was good at alarms, dude, for a long time. But
Yeah.
my best week in alarms, I maybe made 22 or 23,000 or something like that. And this was like if half this cancels, which there's no way in hell half my deals are canceling. But if half of them cancel, I just made 40 grand my first week. So that
Hmm.
was when I kind of knew like I didn't even set my own expectations properly for this. Like something crazy is gonna happen. I knew at the end of that first week.
Yeah. So how did you like? I'm curious because you just seemed like someone that was just naturally good at sales, if I'm hearing this right, or like you didn't have like a huge learning curve. It sounds like in terms of like alarms, you just did it. You just did it. You got five your first day, and then it sounds like you came to solar. first week, seven, you put up seven in a week or a day or whatever. Like how did that, or what would you tell people about that? How did you get over the learning curve so quickly? How did you make sales just a part of who you are? Like what was different about what you were doing?
You know, I when you say it back to me like that, it sounds like
Yeah.
it was easy, and I
Yeah.
have to. It wasn't easy, so I
Okay,
have to
cool.
do a better job of explaining that. Like, now, was it easier for me than you? Like, I'm not going to say it took me a week to get a deal. That had to be really hard, and I've obviously seen that with thousands of reps that I've managed
Yeah.
since then. But like,
Yeah.
it wasn't my experience. I just, dude, you got to understand. At age 12, I started selling drugs, and my
Hmm.
job selling drugs was, if I didn't have customers, to go find people and approach people out of the blue and try to sell them drugs, dude, which was
Yeah.
against the law, right?
So
And I'm
you
in
were
Utah.
selling. You've been selling for a while
So
before you
so
sold
yeah.
alarms. Yeah.
So I didn't really I remember, after a couple doors my first day, one of the powerful thoughts that I had to myself that I reinforced throughout my door knocking career is, like, number one, I don't care what these people think about me. I don't care at all. They are not paying my bills. They're not my friends. They're not doing anything for me. So when I knock on your door, if you're mean to me or you're nice to me, I don't care either way. Like, we're not going to hang out later on. We're not. I have friends. I've had the same friends my whole life. Like, I'm good. So that was one thing that really, really helped me, is I see dudes when they're new on doors get hammered because the getting shut down, scares them. And I just didn't care. So I had this, like, gift of desperation, right, from
Mm.
the terrible life I had put together for myself, combined with years and years of, like, number one, selling something that it does sell itself, but it was hard to do. But then, like, all these crazy violent experiences, and, like, trying to get accepted by this Polynesian culture that doesn't usually accept people that look like me. Like, so I'd had a life filled with rejection, and I'd had a life filled with doing hard things. And so the hard parts for me were to just keep going. The hard parts were the moments where you get a deal and you want to go home. When my legs started to hurt, this foot and leg hurt every single day, like, those little things, those little excuses, those were the hard parts for me. And then to just get myself in the habit of continuing to move on. It in retrospect, it probably was easier for me than a lot of people. Um, but I also outworked a lot of people. Like, I don't know a lot of people who went completely, excuse me, door to door their first day, uh, for 12 hours, and then did the same
Totally.
thing the next day, and then did the same thing the next 12 years, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't see a lot of that. And so I think I had another powerful gift, which was this gift of gratitude, which was just this, like, dudes are out partying, going to the strip. And again, I'm not judging, it's just an example. But, like, think of the guys sitting at the gas stations, the guys taking naps at the
Hmm.
park. And
Hmm.
I'm like, I'm not mad at them. I'm just like, you're insane. You're insane.
Yeah.
You have no idea how lucky you are to be able to make the kind of money we can make for just knocking on someone's door and talking to them. They're not going to shoot at you. They're not going to
Yeah.
beat you up. You're not going to go to jail.
Mm.
Why are you sleeping? Like, it's that
Yeah.
was my mentality, is like, this is crazy. And so
That's
then
awesome.
it got amplified when I got into solar, right? Then all of a sudden it's
Yeah.
like going from six, seven, eight, $900 a deal at the end of my alarm career to 10,000. And
Yeah.
it was like a whole new level of energy.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. No, that's a good point because I do remember so when I got into solar as well and we went out in Vegas, that's where we were located and that's where I met you. I remember you giving a training on working the shift
Yeah.
and you talked about it and you were like, no, like I mean like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. is when you're done, right? And I was like, whoa, that's not what I've been doing, right? And so I do agree with you in terms of like that work ethic is different to different people in the door-to-door industry, right? Some people are like, oh, I've been working hard and they're getting out at like 2 p.m., right?
Yeah.
That was kind of my deal. And when I
Yeah.
heard you give that training, I was like, okay, so he's working harder than me. Like he's doing a lot more than me in a day, right? So there is that aspect of it for sure of like you were putting in work. Yes, you were good at the beginning, but it sounds like you were selling stuff before you were selling solar, right? Like you had
Yeah.
been doing it, you're used to rejection, it sounds like, and you kind of were, just grateful for the opportunity, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so when I came and met you in Vegas, right? You were, I believe, what were you at that point? Were you just running a couple teams at that point? Where had you gone in terms of leadership?
I was probably a regional, but I
Okay,
I might have still been. There was a period there where I was like still a district manager, but I had a couple teams in Vegas and then a team in Phoenix and a team in Utah, and I just wasn't like officially a regional yet, but I was somewhere in there.
okay, cool. So that's when I met you. Dude, I remember just your story, like just what you've shared with us already, like where you came from with jail and your leg and all the different things that you told me, and you were like, I'm just grateful for the opportunity for solar. It just changed my perspective of like, wow, this is like a great opportunity that we have, and we got to take advantage of it. And I remember kind of doing the same thing. We were in Vegas. And everybody, I didn't even know this. Like I kind of had my blinders on too. I was out knocking, right, setting appointments, and I heard that like most of the team was on the strip. Like days later, weeks later, I'm like, dang, I didn't even get the invite, didn't even know that's what we did here. I thought we were all knocking, right? And so
Yeah.
it is funny how it half the battle is just like getting out there and just putting in the reps, right, to get better. I think that's half the battle. But what would you say, I guess, in your world, what is the separator from somebody who comes into your world as a sales rep who's average or good, and then the ones that are just great, like what's the difference maker for somebody that wants to be great, maybe like you or someone else?
The number one thing I think that's the biggest differentiator is actually mentality. I've spent a lot of time on this because I've recently, like over the last year, I've had a couple of my best friends from, grew up the way I did, start doing door to door with me, and I've watched as my brother, like, dude, I've been through everything with, and I remember it brings me back to my early years of just these emotionally dramatic ups and downs, right? Of like
Hmm.
oh, you have the best day in the world, you got 5 deals, you made however much money, and and then the next you like want to kill yourself, dude. You spend
Totally.
a whole day knocking and you don't get a deal. And what I learned pretty quickly that I didn't know I was learning at the time, but served me so well throughout the years, is my really good friend Jake Ellsworth. He's one of the best ever to do alarms. Dude sold like 8,000 personal alarms. He does 500 every year himself. Um, he always said this the best is once you have everything down, you have your pitch down, you know how to sell, you know your style, you know how to present yourself. The only factor that changes is the hours. What that meant to me is the best learn to remove the emotion. The best learn to show up, work the shift like you and I discussed,
Hmm.
clock out from the shift and it's over. And if they got 5 deals that day, dope. If they got zero, dope, because you did the same thing either way.
Mm.
When you get into these places where you have one bad day, one bad week, even one bad month, and you're like changing everything and you're reconstructing your entire pitch and you're reading 5 books and you're taking 5 different things from 5 different books and 5 different mentors and you're mixing it all up and you're like, you're screwed. It's never going to work, dude. It's never going to work.
Mm.
What you were doing last summer that got you the number of deals you were pleased with, or last month, or whatever, it worked. So shut up and do the exact same thing. But it's the emotion.
Mm.
The emotion makes us go into this panic mode and it changes everything. It changes the way we approach the door. It changes the words we use. It changes the energy we give off. It changes everything. And so I think the number one differentiator, I used to always answer that question with work ethic and hours. But
Yeah.
I think even more paramount than that is removing the emotion, is learning that this is just a job and you can do your best at it and it won't work, and you can do your best at it and it's going to work great. And either way, it's just a job. Show up and do the job and then go home.
Man, that's a really good answer. So you'd say emotions, being able to control your emotions in terms of the highs, you don't want to get too high with it or be excited and just go home or be done for the day. And then the lows of like if you have a terrible day, you still do the same thing. You don't get too emotional and switch everything up or like because I definitely could see where you're going with that, where you get in your head like nothing's
Hmm.
working. I got to change my whole. I got to figure out what this guy's doing, or I got to figure out a new pitch. What did you say? I just remember I'd go to someone and be like, "What did you say today? Somehow you got
Yeah.
5 sets or 5 deals.
Yeah.
I'll just copy you."
Yep.
And you're saying it's more of like, okay, you don't freak out. You just are emotionally like locked in still in terms of you're not too in your head. Is that kind of fair in saying that?
Yeah, dude, we forget how crazy door to door is the craziest thing in the world. It is insane
Crazy.
that there are people just sitting in their houses minding their business, and we're going to show
Yeah.
up, and I just met you, and you're going to sign a $45,000 contract that's on your home for the next 25 years in the next 60 minutes. And if you don't do it, I'm pissed at you and I'm pissed at myself. That's insane. What we do is insane.
Yeah.
And so like understanding that when you knock on someone's door, you have got to be someone people want to talk to. You have got
Mm.
to carry yourself as a positive, kind, trustworthy, outgoing, friendly, a person that someone wants to interrupt everything they're already doing in their day and talk to. And you're not going to be that person when you're beating yourself up because the doors weren't going the way you wanted them to go. And you're also not going to be that person when you're about to retire because you got 5 deals today, right? You
Yeah.
got to be
No,
yourself.
that's great, dude. That makes a lot of sense, and I think that's super powerful. Your emotions on the doors. It's huge. What would you say is like the biggest misconception about the solar business? I guess even just right now with a lot of, I don't know, chaos in the solar industry at times, right? Over the last little bit. What's kind of the misconception that people have, and what would you say to those people that are nervous to get into the solar industry or to start their career in the solar industry at this stage?
My biggest like personal experience with that question, I'm single, is dating. And
Yeah.
it's I living in Utah and dating and being in my 30s, dude, I meet so many girls who think every solar guy is the same. And it's the bad
Mm,
actors from our industry that gave us our reputation. And so
yeah.
I think the taste that a lot of people got in their mouth, rightfully so, is that the solar dudes are all this, you have your door to door bro, which is already a thing, but the difference is solar is just a whole other level of like problems and issues you can cause for people. And so there have been a few of these companies that we know the name of that we've seen come and go who have
Yeah.
come and made a ton of money and screwed over massive amounts of people and then left. And I do think there's the people that ran with those companies fit a certain type, and the most like preconceptions that people have about things exist for a reason. And so there is some truth to it. And there's a lot of bad actors in our industry. There's a lot of people that are very similar to each other and act and behave and carry themselves in a certain way. They were bad to homeowners, they're bad to other people, take advantage of people. And so I think that's it. I think there's a taste in at least the people that I encounter the most
Hmm.
in their mouth that there's just a lot of dishonesty. There's a lot of taking advantage of people. There's a lot of using people. And that goes for everything, right? That's going to be the way that those people present themselves in dating. That's going to be the way they present themselves in business, on the doors, and to the people they work with, to each other. They're hyenas. They're going to eat each other alive.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of that for sure. What would you say is like your I guess your proudest moment in the solar industry up to this point in terms of, I guess either your own success or a team success or just something that you're like proud of over the last, I don't know how many years you've been in the industry. I'm just curious what you'd say there with the proudest moment you've had, because you've done so, just so my audience knows, like this guy crushed it in the solar industry, like personal sales. I mean, like he was the guy that I looked up to and was like, I'm chasing. I want to be like Seth. But so I know you've done amazing things personally, but I want to hear from you. Like, what would you say is that moment that you're proudest of?
It's hard to isolate one, dude, but I
Yeah.
think I think probably I can dumb it down to a couple, and a couple of the biggest ones for me. The first one that stands out when you ask that question is my business partner Cam Brown. and I'm not going to take a lot of credit for this, but the emotion I felt in this moment was pride. Where Cam started with me, and he was already exceptional at the job, exceptional recruiter, exceptional human being, exceptional father, top level dude. And I think I run and push and work at a different pace than anyone that Cam had ever worked with. And so I remember I spent a bunch of time away in 2022. And, so this is after 3 years of working together, my 4.5 years in solar from here. So coming back and watching Cam in front of this group at the time in Dallas, we had like 300 dudes in Dallas and would all pack into this warehouse and actually didn't fit in the warehouse. So we'd have to be out back and it would be super hot. And I remember just watching him when I hadn't seen him in front of my group for like 3, 4 months, watching him in front of this massive group, the way he carried himself, the confidence with which he presented himself, and the way he spoke, it had changed. It had changed since we started working together. And I can't tell you exactly specifically what changed, but it was a different version of Cam Brown than I had seen
Hmm.
before. And it was, I mean, and that's my best friend. I'd kill for that dude. I'd die for that dude.
Yeah.
There's that. There's the end of those years, 2021, 2022, 2023. I made over 2 million my first year in solar. Like
Hmm.
me making money stopped being cool pretty quick. Like I made more and more every year, and like it was still cool. Like don't get me wrong, but it very quickly became like, how many other dudes can I get to $1 million a year? And in 2022, I want to say there were 16 guys in this room. We were doing a retreat at the end of the year, and there were 16 dudes in that room that had made over $1 million in one year, that worked with us. And again, how much of that credit goes to me? Probably very little in reality. It's the opportunity primarily. It's the company. It's like it's them over anything else. But that emotion, like that, dude, the amount of millionaires that exists now that didn't exist before they worked with me is something that I'm grateful for either way,
It's
and I'm
amazing.
proud of,
That's amazing. I
regardless
love
of
that.
how much I had to do with it.
No, that's so awesome. No, that is such a cool. I can't even imagine that moment. That's super legit. Um, Talks a lot about you. One thing I want to mention, because I just had this come to my mind. I remember, so this is just a little story about Seth and just the guy that you are. So I remember I was out selling. I don't even know where I was. I think I may have been still in Vegas or Austin at the time, but the thing with working with Seth is, so I was just married, probably maybe our first anniversary, my wife and I, and man, Seth always like he would just send me money and say, "Go take care of your wife, go to dinner, go enjoy your day," and just something that small. Like I still have never had a manager, never had like a regional, never had anyone do something like that besides you when I worked at Legacy. And you did it for everything, birthdays, anniversaries, like you were on the dot. And just that small thing for me, I was like, man, this guy like actually cares. I don't know. It's still to this day, I'm like, man, like there's something about sets that's different. I guess for you, man, like why do you do those things? Like what makes you care? Like how do you care about individuals the way you do? And is that just something that you were born with, or did you learn that along the way? Like, because I noticed it, and not everybody does that, and I get that it's not a lot of money to you, but like to me it was. I didn't have any money, right? So that was like, to be able to take my wife to Ruth's Chris when I'm first married, like that was huge.
Yeah.
So talk about that, like, why do you do stuff like that? How did you learn that?
Well, that's really cool to hear, man. I'm so grateful you brought that up and that you remember that.
Hmm.
That's it's nice to hear that that meant something to you. I I think it's just how my parents are, dude. I think it's growing up in the house that I did. My dad's always done well, and he's also always dedicated a huge portion of both his time and his money to completely philanthropic ventures, like things that do absolutely nothing for him. He's never posted about what he does. He's never bragged. He's never sought, you know, recognition for being a dude that helps people or does what good for the community or anything like that. It's not what it's about at all. He's just a man who does service, and I was raised by that man. And so I think at different stages of my life that's come and gone, but I think that the boom of like making all the money I made helped for me to magnify a quality about myself that is positive, which is that, to me, this whole life, like when I die, like my greatest possession will be the relationships that I had and how long they stood and how many hard things did I go through where these relationships stayed intact with people. And, you know, there's nothing on the planet that I value nearly as much as relationships. And so I think, having the flexibility of making good money made that possible to do.
Yeah.
And I would notice, everyone I worked with was a little bit different. And so I would notice areas where either I worried that, you grinded, you worked hard, right? And
Yeah.
so I saw that and I'm like, all right, well, old boy's also newlywed. And so this is important that we don't, I'm going to push you because I pushed you, but I
Totally.
also like, I'm going to make sure that you don't let relationships and things important in your life fall to the side. Not that you needed me to do that for you, but
Hmm.
that's why I think why that was, everyone's going to have a different version of that, and it's
Yeah.
not the same with everyone because everyone had different things that I would notice. But with you, I would notice you're putting in the hours and sometimes it took a second for you to get the result. Sometimes you had to work really hard to get the result. And I know what that feels like from other things in my life. So I'm like, we got to make sure that your relationship with your wife doesn't get messed up from this job. That was the type of thing I would try to focus on.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, no, that's huge. Okay, switching gears a little, I want to touch on. So you're a father. How many? Is it two? You have two? Is it two daughters?
So I have two, and then I have the one who was placed for adoption
Okay,
a
so
long
three.
time ago that I
So you've
have a relationship with. Yeah.
okay, three daughters, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, three daughters. So how has, I guess, being a father, I don't know, shaped you, changed your drive, maybe shifted you? I love talking to other fathers, right? Obviously, I'm a father now. I've got a 17-month-old son now, right? But
hmm
for you, like, how did that impact you? How did that change you? How does that motivate you now, I guess?
It took me a minute, dude. I wish it didn't, but it wasn't like this. I connected and I loved my
Yeah.
kids and had the human aspect of when they were born, but it took me a minute to really understand and like to really take this fatherhood thing seriously. And that's
Hmm.
been the last couple years of my life, that's been a huge focus. My oldest daughter is, well, the oldest one that I have custody of is 5 now. And so
Okay.
over the last couple of years, as I've really focused on being better, being a single dad, like just me and a 3-year old, well now a 4-year old and a 5-year-old hanging out all day, every day, I
Hmm.
spend 40% of my life with them. And it's a crazy thing, dude. It's a crazy thing to wake up and play with dolls and know that like that's what I'm doing to, the whole day and tomorrow and the next like
Yeah.
it took me a minute. And
Yeah.
once I got a hold of it and understood that is the most important responsibility I have in my entire life by far. Like being responsible to them, it changed my whole perspective on life to where every decision, I used to have road rage. I don't anymore, but I used to like get really mad. I'm the type that would pull over and fight people. And like I don't even look now. If someone's flipping me off, I don't even care. Like I don't little things like that because I think of how it's going to impact my daughters.
Mm.
It's changed every single thing in my life for me, dude. Um, it's changed the kind of music I listen to. It's changed everything. So, you know, I think I'm a harder case because of my upbringing and what I've been through. It, like I said, it took me a second to get to this place, but once I got there, I think a lot of other people get there more quickly. It like, dude, I don't people can't really reach me when I'm with my kids. Like
Yeah.
they are in charge. Whatever they want to do every day that I'm with them, that's what we do. I don't make plans most of the time. They decide what we're gonna do. If they want to go to Thanksgiving Point and look at animals, that's what we're gonna do. Like it's their world. So I
Awesome.
can't. they're everything.
Yeah, that's great. No, that's awesome. It's a game changer. Even if it does take time or the path's different, like it's a game changer being a father. Um, okay, so switching gears again, and w when it comes to fitness and health, so dude, I love fitness, health. Like that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
It fires me up. I love talking about it. I love, coaching people through it. I love selling fitness. I'm on a lot of selling offers for that as well. But how have you seen that or play a role in your life in terms of fitness and your health, in terms of sales too? Like I think they go hand in hand. I think when your health goes to whack, everything goes to whack. But how have you seen your health, your fitness, when you take care of it, when it's like doing well versus when you kind of put it on the back burner? How do you feel like it affects you going through, I guess, your career? How have you seen health and fitness play a role?
I it is paramount. I mean, that's your presentation to the world is how you treat your body. And
Mm,
so, obviously I'm covered in tattoos, like there's other things that are represented there as well. But it for me, I've had a couple fat stages in the last like 15 years where I think the most recent one was like 2019. Actually, I had a brief kind of, but it wasn't too bad. The last bad one was like 2018 or 17. And dude, the way it's not even as much about what other people see for me. It's not even as much about the initial judgment on the doorstep when you're a door-to-door salesman, although those things do matter to me. It's about the way I feel about myself. And anytime I think of when the homies call him Jolly Seth, when I let myself get fat and I just
okay.
stop caring,
Yeah.
Jolly Seth, dude, I am like the way that I'm talking to myself, and maybe you don't have to do this. I'm not saying for everyone these two are mutually exclusive, but like dude, it is just so different. The way
Hmm.
I feel, the way I talk to myself, the way it is when I look in the mirror, it's just it makes no sense to me. And as a father, circling back to that one, like it's really important for me for my kids to see that I work hard to take care of my body and to stay in good shape. I think it's a man's job to protect everyone around him. And I don't know
Hmm.
how you're going to do that if you can't, move for 30 seconds without running out of breath. Like, so there's layers to it for me. But,
Hmm.
I think as a leader in door-to-door industry, I think it's really imperative to be in shape. And we all have different definitions of what that means and what it looks like. And that's totally cool because nobody else's opinion means shit about the way your body looks. It's only yours that matters.
Totally.
But I think you've got to be able to look in the mirror and say, like, I'm happy with the work I'm putting in to look this way. If you want to go teach other people something as hard as door to door,
Mm.
right? That's just
Yeah.
my take on it. I'm
Yeah.
opinionated, but
Yeah. No, that's so true. I think it's huge, man. Like, especially being a leader, like everybody's looking at that. That's the first thing they see, right? I
yeah,
don't care if you say you don't judge people, like you do. It's a natural instinct, right? It's just what we're wired to do. We judge people with how their fitness, their health is when we first meet someone, right? And so totally agree. But I agree with what you said. It's like a personal thing. It's like, do you feel good about your health and fitness? Not does Sam down the street or Joe Blow think that you look fit, but like how do you feel? You know?
yeah.
That's huge too. Not doing it for someone else, I think is a big part of it as well. That's awesome. Okay, well, dude, I appreciate it so far. Like this has been an awesome podcast. I want to kind of wrap things up for the audience here, and then I have a kind of a couple, I guess, rapid questions to hit you with really quick, and then kind of my final question. So for you, I guess, what would be like the most underrated trait that you think a man can have? I know that's kind of an interesting question, but I'm just going to hit you with a couple quick ones.
Trust.
Trust. Like it. What is a book or a quote, or if you don't have one, that's fine too, that you feel like has shaped you or changed your life in some sort of way? Book or quote.
Uh, how to win friends and influence people. Dale Carnegie. even and the quote from that book, this is like the basis of my door-to-door career. That was the first book I really understood. There's obviously a million more since then, but he talks about going fishing with strawberries and cream because he likes strawberries and cream. Fish don't eat strawberries and cream. You have to learn to fish with what the fish want to
Mm,
eat, right?
mm,
That was me figuring out that my flavor isn't everybody's flavor in sales.
dang, that's good. Okay. And then what's the hardest lesson that you've had to learn?
In my life,
Yeah, up to this point, what's one lesson that you feel like was really really hard for you to learn?
are you familiar with the pride cycle?
Oh, yeah, go through it
That's
all the
it, dude.
time.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's real.
no one is impervious to the pride side. No one. No matter
100%.
how powerful, no matter how much money, no matter how talented, no matter how anything, no one's impervious. It comes for all of us. As soon as we start to have some success, we start feeling ourselves. I'll speak for me. I start feeling myself. I start talking a lot. I start thinking I'm cool, and I get smacked every time. And so for me, humility has been the most important thing in my entire life because it can keep me safe from myself. And the only person that scares me in the entire world is me.
Mm, man, that's really good. That is so true. And then my last question that I like to leave with all my guests, kind of to wrap this up. Um, what's your definition? And you can think about it for a second, but what is your definition at this point in your life? Because it always changes, at least for me, it's changed multiple times, but your definition of success to you at this stage of your career, what does success mean to you?
The best way I could define that at this stage of my career is that the area or aspect of your life that is lacking is not lacking in a dramatic fashion. The reason I say that, no one's life is ever perfectly balanced, no matter who they are. We are always not paying enough attention to one aspect or area of life. And so the person who notices it quickly and fixes those aspects before we get too far off balance is who I would refer to as successful.
Man, that was a great one. That was a good
Thank you.
definition. That's an interesting way of thinking about it. Everybody's off balance. How quickly can you notice and kind of correct? And it's always going to be happening. That is interesting. I like that. Cool. Well, Seth, I appreciate you coming on, man. Obviously, for the guys that want to get in door to door or want to get into solar, Seth is a great way to go through. He's at Legacy Power. He is the VP of Legacy Power right now, and yeah, I mean he helped me a ton. He continues to help me. I continue to watch him from afar in his life and just see how he overcomes all the hard things that we all deal with, right, in different ways. But I appreciate you coming on, Seth. It really means a lot to me in terms of you being kind of like my mentor. So I appreciate it. And I hope you guys got some good stuff from the show. But yeah, that's the show here. I appreciate it, Seth. Thanks for coming on.
All right. Thanks, my dude.
Okay, take care, man.
All right. You